Hi everybody and welcome. I'm Jessica Murray. I'm the managing editor for Stairway to STEM. After more than a year in development, we launched STS August 2018. And so we support autistic students as they transition from high school to college, particularly in STEM fields. So how do we do this, and what are some of our guiding principles? For students to achieve STEM success, we have to address the challenges that the autistic population and their advocates indicate are the most pressing. So our research and outreach tell us that things like time management, dealing with sensory issues, and even, say, interacting with professors and other students, all contribute and play a role in STEM success. So while we have resources about how to prepare for your first biology class in college, we also have resources dedicated to skills that all students need for a productive and healthy college experience. There's a saying in autistic communities, nothing about us without us, and the bulk of our materials come from autistic contributors, and this includes students, parents, and educators. Those who aren't autistic are longtime advocates for autistic communities or have personal relationships as well. Our resources are our contributors, 4 of whom have joined me here today. I'm going to introduce you to them in a moment, but I wanted to let you know we use a collaborative approach where content creators are paired with editorial board members, and together they collaborate on the resources that address the challenges and concerns of autistic students. We can create a more diverse and inclusive student body through fostering acceptance and also highlighting role models for autistic students who benefit from hearing and seeing that others have been there and succeeded before them. Finally, we believe in interdependence for autistic students and their families, but more broadly for autistic students and their communities. We have materials for parents and educators specific to the challenges of their autistic students, but often, as in the case of, say, universal design for learning principles, these resources and materials are beneficial to all students. Since mid-August of this year, we have produced more than 65 blogs, interviews, videos, and other resources on STS that instill confidence and support the potential of all autistic students. So I'm going to introduce you to our contributors, but I also wanted to invite you at any time. We're going to take questions at the end, but please feel free to post questions on our Facebook or to tweet questions at us as well. So first is Eleanor Alms. Hi, Eleanor. She's a registered behavior tech in Fresno, California. She works part-time as an in-home positive behavior supports provider, and she's a biology major at Fresno City College. In her spare time, she watches anime, and she cares for her many pets. Justin Robbins. Oh, thanks, Eleanor. Sorry. Thank you. And Justin Robbins, who's here with me. He's a recent graduate of Tufts University who double majored in biology and history. In addition to being an advocate for other autistic people, he enjoys board games, great world building, and truly terrible puns. Hi, Justin.
Yep. Hello.
Next is Sarah Sanders Gardner. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. She's an autistic professional living in Redmond, Washington, near Seattle. She's the designer and program director of Bellevue College's Autism Spectrum Navigators program, which is now in its 8th year, and serving more than 200 students. She also consults with Microsoft's U.S. Autism Inclusive Hiring Program, and she leads training sessions with prospective managers and team peers of individuals hired through the program. They discuss areas such as social justice, autism as a culture and a disability, and communication styles. And then lastly, Susan Woods. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
She's a recently retired she recently retired as Associate Dean of Student Support Services at Middlesex Community College after 27 years. She managed the school's disability support services, supporting more than 1,000 students with documented disabilities, as well as alternative and grant-funded programs. She has regularly provided training and workshops to faculty and staff on creating welcoming and inclusive environments, and also on UDL. Now she focuses on professional development and training for high school personnel, as well as families to help support the successful transition to college for students with disabilities. So thank you everybody, Justin and everybody for joining us. I'm going to turn this over now to our contributors, and we'll hear first from Sarah, who's going to talk a little bit about Autism 101, Susan, who will talk about some issues and ideas about pedagogy, Justin and Eleanor will then talk about college experiences as well. So thank you, and Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. To have truly productive interactions between autistic and neurotypical people, it's important to work towards understanding instead of attempting to manage or fit autistic people into culturally expected communication and behavioral patterns. Understanding the true disabling features of autism while thinking about autism as a cultural difference will support these efforts. Many autistic and otherwise disabled individuals prefer identity-first language, which incorporates disability as part of their identity. So much as we might refer to a person as tall, thoughtful, or kind, so too do we refer to them as an autistic person, placing their autism as part of their identity. This is a matter of personal choice, and the best thing to do is to ask the person what they prefer, person-first or identity-first language, if you need to discuss their disability. I'm autistic myself, and I prefer identity-first language. Autistic culture has a history dating back to the 1990s and has developed its own customs, traditions, and approaches to expression and social interaction. Autistic culture is created for and by autistic people and is built around the ways of speaking, thinking, and acting that come naturally to us. It's been studied by cultural anthropologists and continues to grow and evolve. You can learn more at the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network at www.autisticadvocacy.org. When you're thinking about communication styles, there are direct and indirect communicators, concrete and abstract thinkers, and people who lead with logic or people who lead with emotion. Think Spock versus Kirk, and a range of communication styles in between. With exceptions, of course, autistic people tend to lead towards direct, concrete, and logical. Also, many of us don't recognize nonverbal communication or implied meanings in certain situations. This can leave us confused or misinterpreting. This is a two-way street, though, because neurotypical people frequently misinterpret our meaning and are confused or even feel insulted by our more direct communication or our tone of voice. The best cure for this is advocacy on both sides. Ask for clarification. If we seem upset or angry because of our tone or what we're saying, ask us. If you sense that someone, autistic or not, is confused by abstract or implied communication, try adding a sentence or two that's more direct and see if that's helpful. My most useful phrase is, "Could you please say that again another way?" There are a lot of myths around autism, and one of the biggest myths is that autism is a purely social communication disorder, and that with proper social skills instruction or mentoring, students can fit in. If it were that simple, then education and employment rates would be much higher. What's true is that autism can affect a person across many areas. Autistic people can have many co-occurring neurological conditions that affect our daily well-being. The most debilitating of these is likely sensory processing disorder, but there are many more. The Autism 101 article on Stairway to STEM expands on this, and if you read the blogs of autistic authors, you will learn quite a bit about how autism actually affects us. Another myth is that autism is overdiagnosed. If anything, the reverse is true, particularly in certain populations, including adults, women, and marginalized populations. Bellevue College's Autism Spectrum Navigators program recently moved out from under the Disability Center and under the Center for Career Connections, in part so that we could include those who, for a myriad of reasons, could not get a formal autism diagnosis and still identified as autistic. There are other myths around autism, including that we're unfeeling, we lack theory of mind, we're all intellectually disabled or geniuses or savants, and that we're violent. None of these are true, and they are all damaging to the autistic community. And much as racism is part of the daily life for people of color, ableism is part of the daily life for disabled people, including autistic people. This includes internalized ableism, or feeling as if we should be doing better at fitting in, not needing accommodations or support, not being disabled. Ableism can take the form of microaggressions, as in compliments such as "you don't seem autistic to me," or "you must be high functioning," or even "you're so inspiring" or "so articulate." Ableism is also experienced as overhelping or even passing a student who hasn't met the outcomes for a course. The good news is that you can make a big difference by learning about autism cultural responsiveness. You can learn even more by reading the posts on Stairway to STEM and elsewhere written by autistic advocates and activists.
Terrific. Thank you, Sarah. And now we'll hear a little bit from Susan.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a delight to be here. So I've been asked to talk a bit about pedagogy, and I'm going to do so in the context of universal design for instruction or learning, as Jessica mentioned. And my view on this that I'd like to sort of share is that universal design is essentially good teaching. And it's approaches that are going to be beneficial for the few, but also beneficial for all. I view it as part of an institution or university or college's diversity mission. So there are some approaches that are effective, and I'm going to talk a little bit about strategies as well as ways that faculty and institutions can support autistic students. So one of the ways, some of the strategies that are effective would be things like using scaffolding techniques, reviewing content before moving forward, linking concepts to previously learned material, cueing to allow for adequate processing, modeling good note-taking and organizational skills, and presenting information in an organized fashion, providing things like guided notes and posting notes online. I also recommend reinforcing written material verbally and reinforcing verbal material in writing. The other recommendation that faculty often embrace is bringing closure to each session by summing up important points and concepts, as well as using multiple measures for students to demonstrate competency. This can be done through a faculty syllabus in their rubric of standards for demonstrating competency, things like e-portfolios, student presentations, video or web-based reports, and multiple format tests. Ways that faculty and institutions can support students on the autism spectrum in their institutions are becoming aware of accommodations, helping students in their self-awareness, self-confidence, and metacognition, learning how you learn, knowing how you know, practicing communication, email, and verbal communication, and practicing ways to participate as part of a group. So I often encourage faculty to help our students seek the support that is available through the institution. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Susan. And I'm sorry, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but Sarah and Susan are two of our editorial board members, and Justin and Eleanor are two of our content creators. So we're going to hear from Justin now.
So in college, I founded the Coalition for Autism Sport at Tufts, otherwise known as CAST. CAST was a confidential weekly meetup for autistic people in the Tufts community. Every week, we would email out a discussion idea in advance, and then we would talk about anything from current events, socializing tips, romance, how we're portrayed in the media, and countless other topics. That was my vision as I crawled my way through the final leg of high school. I was isolated, rejected by most of the people I had thought of as friends, in an untenable home situation, and suicidal. But then, on the first day of college, I met a guy, and he was autistic too. We were the first confirmed other autistic person we had ever met. 18 years of being the weird one, the broken one, the thing nobody cared for unless they were volunteering or being paid. And now we had each other. Suddenly that desperate vision didn't seem so strange anymore. And with some signal boosting from the LGBT Center, we had some initial members and we held our first meetings. Fellow autistics saw opportunities they never thought they'd see. We looked after each other, made space where we didn't have to worry about neurotypical rituals or beliefs or whether we really counted as autistic or not. We forged a community where there had once only been isolation and fear. That was all I could have hoped for, but we grew so far beyond that, as did I. When we started, for example, there was an Autism Speaks chapter on campus. Within 2 years, there wasn't. We started holding annual Q&A panels about autism for the general public, and they were enormously successful. After establishing a solid foundation in our first year and a half or so, we opened up the group for neurotypicals and greatly benefited from their experience and insights into strange and mysterious corners of human existence, like dating. We had visits from high schools helping spread the ideas of neurodiversity to a new generation here being used extremely relatively. Outside groups even came to us and our members for advice, such as Mass General's Aspire program and the fine folks here. And when push came to shove, like against our own child development department, we fought for the dignity and worth of autistic people in the court of public opinion. I really think it's fair to say that we changed the way the Tufts community thinks about autism. We force the world to see autism with human faces and as a part of our identities as real human beings. That we have our own thoughts and desires and emotions independent of our parents or the other neurotypicals around us. And that we, overall, kind of like who we are and accept our autism as a rightful part of our existence and all that entails. The good, the bad, and the, by the way, have I told you guys how much I love the musical Hamilton? Thank you.
Thanks. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Eleanor. Eleanor?
Hi, everyone. Earlier, Sarah mentioned that many students lack access to diagnoses. I'm one of those students, and I'm really interested in making programs accessible to students with and without DSO services. So when I was younger, I was a gifted student, and I had a lot of social problems. I mean, I couldn't find a single friend until high school when I met one friend who was with me until very recently. I had a rough time in high school, and a couple years after graduating, I was homeless. Fast forward about a year and a half, and I had moved to Central California and found a job working with autistic children. You should have seen me when I met these children. I bet my entire body lit up like a light bulb. I could see every one of my quirks in these children. Eureka! My obsessive research shifted from the mental disorders I was interested in after my parents were both diagnosed with bipolar disorder to autism and neurodiversity in general. I know my dad has actually received an ADHD diagnosis since I began working as a behavior tech, so my family's clearly more neurodiverse than we first understood. All of these developments really affected my desire to study autism and neurology. I'm currently a biology student at my local community college. Along this ride, I've come to accept my sins and other more visible traits, but there are some issues I wish I had more help with, particularly co-occurring conditions, which, of course, are more common with individuals on the spectrum. My wrists and other joints have been painful my entire life, and I develop wrist ganglion cysts about every year or two. Unfortunately, I don't have access to health care, and so I lack both an autism diagnosis and management for my wrist problems. Additionally, since I have no documented need for DSO services, I cannot use DSO services to help me get access to the documentations of my needs. Due to inadequate information processing, it's been incredibly difficult to get through paperwork, confusing goose chases around different departments, and the frustration that quickly builds up while I'm attempting to complete these tasks. As a matter of fact, I attempted to go to college 3 times before succeeding last semester. Each time it was always something like the FAFSA application, the assessments, or simply trying to navigate the school's online process. To succeed this time around, I had to simply continue picking it up, getting 1 or 2 items filled out, and setting it back down over the course of about a year. When it came to assessment time, I pretty much just cried for 2 days straight, waiting for people to help me from step to step, building to building, and then bam! I was enrolled in college for the first time. Dear Lord, I never want another hidden autistic student to go through that again, so I want to make some changes at my college and see where it goes. Sarah mentioned that her school's autism program is no longer under disability services, but instead under the Office for Career Opportunities, and Justin's program at Tufts made incredible changes for their autistic population. I want to combine these 2 qualities and make community college truly accessible to people with autism and/or information processing disabilities. My initial idea is to begin a club for neurodiverse students. I want to know if it's possible for us to set up a one-stop accessible application workshop featuring peer-to-peer assistance. I will have a meeting with our DSO director tomorrow to learn more about accommodations and where we might begin to branch autism supports away from disability services. When we talk about folding autistic and differently abled students into community college and STEM majors, what we're really talking about is best practices for everyone. It follows that when our most disadvantaged students' needs are met, we are leveling the playing field for all, with or without a documented need. Thank you for believing in students like me.
Thanks, Amy. Great, thank you everybody, and for Justin and our long distance contributors. So I want to turn this presentation over to you to see if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to ask any of our contributors.
The STS website,
Yes.
Jessica, would you tell that to people?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, yes, if you came in late, sorry, it's been in development for over more than a year. We launched August of this year, 2018, and we have more than 65 resources on STS to support students as they transition from high school to college, particularly in the STEM field. So a lot of our contributors are students. Maybe Justin and Eleanor could even give the titles or talk a tiny bit about some of the resources they've created.
Sure. I think the first piece I wrote for them was a letter to my past, like me 5 years ago, when I'm just going through the first part of my story there, the not good part. I also have written about what to expect for intro STEM classes, how science curricula is different in colleges than in high school.
Thanks, Justin. And Eleanor?
Yes?
Sorry, can you share some of the STS blogs that you've been working on?
Oh yeah, well, as you know, right now I'm working on prepping for kind of scenarios that we're not really excited about, like maybe police encounters and things like that. But I've also covered topics such as getting ready for the first day of school. It's really helpful to go to school at least a couple of times before you actually start your semester. And I've also worked on one for your schedule. I know that that's not quite up yet, but it'll be coming soon. And I'm actually really excited about that one.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, hi. I had a really good quick question. Are you working with any potential employers that are actively recruiting for autistic students? And in particular, I know of a few that are looking at actively recruiting around pen testing, because repetitive systems works really well. And I can speak. I have 2 kids who are autistic, so I'm a mama bear. So I really understand it from that perspective. But I'd love to hear what your views are with employers taking an active role and seeing it as a value for some of the work that needs to be done, especially if it's repetitive and requires certain types of problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great question. Right now we don't necessarily have any collaborators, but we have featured articles on companies like Microsoft, SAP, Aspira Tech. So we do try to raise everybody's awareness that there are companies out there who do value neurodivergency and who see the value, not in part maybe because of a match for skills, but also just thinking about what a diverse workforce means for the success of your company too.
And to normalize the practice of hiring people who don't on the surface seem normal.
Mm-hmm. And we're also really focused sort of initially on this original transition from high school to college, but Justin can maybe talk about this too, but we know that's the next transition. You make it, you succeed, and then what supports do you need from that point? Yeah.
First and foremost, just congratulations to both of your students. I had a tear coming down my eyes just thinking about what you guys must have gone through in your high school days. So kudos to both of you. Is there any pipeline set up for students to, let's say, with these characteristics, to start working for a public agency, let's say for the city or the county? Because we just got awarded a MNSF grant to start piping in students into a city position, and they have volunteer programs already set up for our students. I was just wondering what type of procedures, if any, are available or intact for city employees to hire.
I'm aware of a lot of, I don't know all of the super deals, but I know a lot of at least federal policy is kind of geared towards the assumption that autistic people we just stop at age 18. And so you have this narrative of like, I guess they're trying to like make us sufficiently normal. So, you know, the kid's 13, 14, you're trying to make them normal. 15, you're trying to make them normal. 16, you know, college is coming, graduation year is coming up. You're trying to make them normal. 17, 18, they're not normal because that's not going to work. And oh, look, you haven't spent any time or resources preparing for the future. Like I know in the like the federal autism research budget, less than 4% of it actually goes towards adults, and the rest of it goes to like genetics and child affairs. It's really skewed. And it shows like how when we think of autism, we think of like someone half my size and like not staying still. This is hard, by the way. Staying this still is not easy.
Yeah, and so we don't necessarily like STS as an entity, but I did want to check with Sarah and Susan to see if they know of any place in their areas where maybe they have some connections to that kind of pipeline. Sarah or Susan, does that sound?
I'll pipe in. I'm coming in here from the Boston area. So there is a wonderful organization that I know STS is interfaced with, which is called the Asperger's Association of New England, AANE. And they've been doing a number of things. It's a grassroots organization that's been doing both training with school systems, which is very, very important, as well as life mapping. With individuals to sort of help in that transition, first from high school to college and then from college to employment. So they've had a very, very profound impact and advocacy in the Boston area. So that's one of the resources that I'm aware of. Again, they're aane.org.
And this is Sarah. I would just say that the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network that I mentioned earlier is an international really network that focuses on all the rights of autistic adults and of course children as well, but that is really where an autistic adult can go to get support in all different areas. So they really cover the gamut.
One of the things that we've done with one of the populations we're working with is first generation students, and we've done summer camps, or we've called it lots of different things, but we get them to campus a month early and you know, try to work through some of this. Would that have been valuable to the two of you?
Maybe not me personally, but I've seen some stuff like that done. In fact, one of the programs Aspire does is what they call a college boot camp, where they, you know, go to a campus and you get a tour, you see some of the major sites, and you learn about the kinds of expectations. So yeah, I've seen that work pretty well for autistic people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do have like boot camp style things at my school. A lot of them require the paperwork that I was talking about. And so if we could simplify that process, I do think that it could be helpful. I really do. As I said, I wrote about the first day of school, and so you really can incorporate all of that into, you know, small groups of autistic students getting really familiar with the college grounds.
And if I can make a comment, one of the programs that I oversaw at a community college in Massachusetts was a TRIO program, and it's a federally funded support, which originated in first generation low income, but has expanded to offer additional support to individuals documented as having a disability. And so one of the initiatives was an early orientation, some early advising, some previewing, which again can be generalized to a number of populations that might find that transition challenging and embrace some of the principles of universal design around access. So it was very, very useful, and it was federal money that supported that.
Thank you, Susan.
So I have a question, perhaps Susan could help with this. This is some advice for us. We have an intern working in our lab right now who is autistic. And the question was, we're dealing with some oppositional opinions from the student who doesn't want to follow protocol because they think that they have a better idea of how this could be done. And then that works toward a career. So can you give some tips on that?
I'd be happy to. So one of the blogs actually I authored that's up on the site sort of looked at some challenges in a classroom environment, and it was through the persona of a college faculty and some of the work that was done with the student as well as with the student support services. And it really sort of carved out a conversation. And the conversations really were very transparent and very that, I think one of the first and foremost steps is to talk about it, to name it. And perhaps have some support as an employer versus, as a student employee or whether it's an individual employed by the institution, to come out with some strategies, to come out with some support. Some individuals, respond very well to some previewing, some scripting, some practice, some orientation, and well as having a very, very direct conversation about interactions. And I think that that's where the staff, perhaps in an institution's disability or student support, I oversaw student support, were able to be very valuable in sort of framing that conversation and really coming up with some strategies that are going to work for the work environment. It's not easy necessarily. There's no one size fits all approach, but I think you have to start with an initial conversation.
Thank you,
Hope
Susan.
that helps.
Thank you. And I know we have to wrap up in 1 second. I just wanted to see, Sarah, if you had anything to add in terms of strategies, because I know you do a lot of that work as well. And then we'll say thank you to all of you for stopping by.
I do. That's actually the training that I provide for Microsoft for their autism hires. I would definitely say take a look at the Autism 101 article as well there, and look at the information about autistic culture and communication. Another resource I have to recommend is called Collaborative Problem Solving through Massachusetts General Department of Psychiatry. You can find it on thinkkids.org. It starts that conversation that Susan mentioned. So those are all additional resources for you.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate you coming. We'll be around after if you have any further questions or comments. Thank you so much to Justin, Eleanor, Sarah, and Susan. It was really great.